Let's dive even more into Pacers Thunder Cam Payne debuts and starts for the Pacers. Where is the point guard battle right now? Isaiah Jackson's bounce back, the center rotation in more depth, and it's time to play Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs. It's all coming today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Monday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, Pacers Thunder discussion part 2. If you want to hear about the rotation guys who played the best, some of the core players, most of them, and of course, the explosion of Taylor and Peter, the short podcast that came up on Saturday night / Sunday morning is for you. For the other stuff from the game that I think mattered. Oh, and we talked about the injuries to Johnny Furphy and Quinton Jackson on that previous show I just mentioned as well. Today, we're getting to Cam Payne's debut, some point guard rotational discussion with Quinton Jackson's another strong performance. The center rotation after a better game from Isaiah Jackson. Jay Huff was good. Bradley and Wiseman both doing noteworthy things. Where is the status of that? And so much more today. If this was going to be a discussion straight up of things that mattered from the game, I would start with Cam Payne and then kind of flow to Isaiah Jackson and then expand on those conversations. But Cam Payne's debut fits into a point guard conversation, and Isaiah Jackson and the center's performance fits into a center rotation conversation. So it's kind of going to be piecemeal today, from game, out of game, in game, out of game. I want to start at point guard. And specifically with a player who's been out on the team for 5 days, not even 4 days, and is receiving quite a bit of, I don't even know what the right word is from fans, just not enjoying the experience of Cam Payne, who debuted in this game as a starter. Andrew Nembhard did not play. McConnell injured. Cam Payne gets the nod with the half starters, half backups that open this game for the Pacers. And he plays 19 minutes, plays in the first 3 quarters of the game, and goes 0 for 4, all of his shots from 3 with 1 rebound, 3 assists, 1 block, and 2 turnovers. The Pacers win his minutes by 5. So let me say this first. My description of his game, I said this to somebody on media row sitting next to me during the game. He had the most I just got here kind of game I've ever seen, right? Where it's like first possession, he's on the team. He wiggles his way into 2 good looks from 3 and just misses both. And then a lot of stuff when he was out there was just really simple. Get it across the timeline, get it to this guy, figure out where to go. You know, he wasn't like flying to spots or like really diming anybody up or anything like that. And it's like, to be expected. Alex Golden tweeted during the game, you could tell Quinton Jackson's been on the team for 2 years and Cam Payne's been on the team for 2 days. That is true, right? Now, I'm not making any, we'll get into the point guard battle in a second. That thought is unrelated to what I'm going to say later. But I thought that was very true of Cam Payne, is that you could tell that he had only been on the team for a few days. Now, on one hand, he deserves that sort of, point of I can't think of the word that's in context. Oh my gosh. That point of context is required for the performance he had. Like, he wasn't bad. He missed 4 threes. If everybody who missed 4 threes in a game had a bad game, Jarris Walker had a bad game, Obi Toppin had a bad game, Cam Payne had a bad game, Johnny Furphy was close to a bad game, Gabe McLaughlin had a bad game. All those players missed 4 threes in this game, and they did not all have bad games. It was a little simpler than that for Payne, where it just like it wasn't fully expanded version of the game, but like he had 3 nice assists. He wasn't like totally miserable on the floor. However, what was different, and what Rick Carlisle said post-game, is just like he, after 5 minutes, came out. He was the first starter to leave the game, and I was like, he was missing shots, but I was like, wow, that was a quick pull of him compared to anyone else in the game. I think there was over 7 minutes left in the first quarter when he exited. Yeah, 7:54. He only played for about 4 minutes in his first into the game. And post-game, we learned that he was just kind of gassed, right? There's a difference between like you're working out all summer in preparation for an opportunity and like, hey, you're playing in a game, and not just in a game, you're playing for the Indiana Pacers. It's very demanding. And you could, you could see that in him a little bit, I think, especially on the defensive end. I'll say this. If you're in a roster battle, one, to like make a team, although I think his chances are probably decent after the McConnell injury. So one, if you're in a roster battle to make the team, and 2, if you're actually fighting for like real minutes on a team that could be decent, like you're not asking out unless you are like, oh my gosh, level gas. Like You got to have some stones to know that. Instead of just being like, I'll fight through it and try to be a team guy. I actually would like to give him credit for that, even though his performance was not obviously particularly awesome. It takes a lot of stones to do that, and he deserves that. But like, his first turnover was really kind of stupid, and he had some offensive misses, and he just couldn't hit anything. He had a lob that was way too high for Jay Huff in the second half. Like, there were some plays where it was clear, like, okay, he's been on the team for 2 days, but I think people are being a little too harsh about a game that was just he missed 4 threes. If he goes 1 for 4 from deep or 2 for 4 from deep, everybody's like, oh, he's been about league average, a little better than that the last like 5 seasons in the NBA. And it's not. Now, here's the thing. Cam Payne's a 36, 37, 38% three-point shooter who rarely goes 3 for 8 in a game. It's either going to be 6 for 8 or 0 for 8, kind of Justin Holiday-esque. And this was a bad one to start. If it stacks games like this, obviously some concern should come. But I think a lot of the pointing of like, haha, that was terrible, what's he doing here, is just way too harsh. It was not a great performance, obviously, but you could tell he'd been on the team for 2 days. You could tell conditioning-wise he'd been on the team for 2 days. Honestly, I'm not even sure, I'll say this now before the game, that Monday will be so much better against San Antonio. But the second Spurs game, when he's had over a week, that's about when DeLon Wright's first game was, that's when it's like maybe not fair, but a little more reasonable to come harshly with critiques if he's playing quite poorly. And maybe he makes shots against the Spurs in the second game and everybody says, oh yeah, that's the whole thing. So let's tie this into the like entire discussion of what's happening. Because I can say all that and say, I'm going to give Cam Payne a little more grace. And I also don't think he played as bad as everybody else is saying, even though it was not like a good game, to be clear. But I can also admit this. Quinton Jackson is just playing straight up better than him, right? If I, who should not have any decision-making power for anything, if I had any say, I would say Quinton Jackson should be the backup point guard for the Pacers right now, right? He has like body of work. Like, we don't have to talk about what's happened in the last 10 days or whatever, right? Like, last November, the Pacers relied on him for real minutes, and they went mostly, it was not always good, but it was like mostly fine. He had 24 points in an NBA game last year. You don't just like do that. He's always very good in the G League. He dominates Summer League. He had 1 awful Summer League game for the Pacers, and basically the other 5 he's played have been good, right? He's a good player. In this specific game, the first time him and Cam Payne have been on the same team, on the same floor, Quinton Jackson had 14 points, 2 assists, plus 10 on 6 for 8. Cam Payne had 0 points, 3 assists, on 0 for 4. Like, Quinton Jackson was just better than him, right? I think that is, I agree with everybody that is the thing. Like, I think personally, Quinton Jackson would be, should be the backup one. However, can I say this? I've seen a lot of this, either in YouTube comments of listeners or on Twitter, people saying, I think Quinton Jackson should easily, by far, etc., be the backup point guard. I'm like, okay, let's pump the brakes on that. Because I do think that the gap in ability right now, or the gap in impact, especially that we've seen with specifically the Pacers, it is favoring Quinton Jackson. Alex's point about 2 days versus 2 years matters. And the other thing I would say that I would like to point to is, as a thing, is like Quinton Jackson, both of his assists against OKC were just like, again, this is not a bad thing. I have to keep contextualizing this to be clear. Just like blur of speed, defense freaks out, he hits an open guy and they score. Those still count as assists. Those are still good plays. Those are not like getting into the offense or like starting a bunch of actions for the Pacers kind of assists. That's not a criticism. That's just commentary on what his position is. And maybe that why there'd be some restraint to play him purely as a 1. Even Rick Carlisle called him a hybrid or a combo or whatever this week when we were talking about, I asked Rick about like what he has seen in Quinton's development with purely point guard skills since they acquired him back in 2023. And he certainly has gotten better at those things. But like, one more stat for you, I think, what's he played 24 minutes in preseason? Synergy has logged two pick and rolls for Quinton Jackson that he's run as a ball handler, right? Some of that's like if the Pacers called more, he'd run more, but like, that's just not something that you think about with him all the time, is some of those traditional things. I'm, again, not saying that as an insult to Quinton Jackson, who's a good player that I think right now, when opening night comes, if this is the Pacers roster, he would be the backup 1 because TJ McConnell's hurt. That's fine. But it's, 1, not that simple. It's more of a nuanced discussion than that. 2, let's give Cam Payne like a week to see what this is. And 3, I understand the, like, maybe not hesitancy, but just the thought of, like, this is a combo that we'd like to deploy as a combo more often. Let's see where this goes, right? Especially if, like, Shepherd stays hurt or Furphy's a thing. Like, hey, Quinton Jackson could be needed as the backup too instead, right? Like, there's a lot of layers to still consider with all this. So let me be clear one more time. I know the comments are coming. I agree with what I believe is the more popular opinion right now, that Quinton Jackson should be the Pacers until McConnell's backup point guard behind Nembhard. However, I do not think it's like some hugely wide gap over Cam Payne, and Cam Payne is some scrub. Fans really seem to dislike this guy. His jumper is ugly, but like it does go in more than he showed in the first game. Okay, let's move out of the big picture, back into the small stuff. Centers against OKC. Isaiah Jackson's game I didn't get to talk about much over the weekend. The rotational choices, again, basically I only talked about Huff. Let's talk about the rest of the guys coming up here on Locked On Pacers. Before we do that, I want to talk to you guys about Peloton, who is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new cross-training Tread Plus powered by Peloton IQ. It's the most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. The Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching that actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. They have a swivel screen. It's a game changer, so you can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. And the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level each week. So let yourself run, lift, and flex and push forward. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus today at One Peloton. That's OnePeloton.com. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day. Or second listen, I'll say Locked On Celtics, because Wendell Moore had a crazy dunk in the preseason game I was watching not too long ago. And the Celtics are at least somewhat interesting to me in terms of how they've handled the preseason. This Hugo Gonzalez kid they drafted looks good. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, I wear a Mariners hat a lot. I mentioned this last week just because I like the colors of the Mariners, not because I'm a root for the Mariners. I can't wear it anymore. They're doing too well. I look too much like a bandwagon fan. So the IU hat will last for a while, which is great. Number 3, the Hoosiers. That's crazy. Okay, we're talking about the Pacers today. Let's get to the centers because I didn't talk much about Isaiah Jackson on Sunday, and that's because his stat line looks like not bad, but just pedestrian, right? 1 for 2, 3 boards, 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block, 1 turnover. Isaiah Jackson, the big one. 12 minutes, 1 foul. 1 foul for Isaiah Jackson in his 3 points. He did not play in the second half, mounting evidence that they believe he'll be the starting center on opening night. He started both of these games. He did not play in the second half. J. Huff did. It's fine to me. Isaiah Jackson, much better in this game. He's now had 4 stints starting both games, and then his second stint in both preseason games. The first of the 4 stints was just terrible. He fouled 3 times in less than 2.5 minutes and left the game. The other 3 have been totally adequate. Right. He still has one problem. I mean, the fouls or something. We'll see. He only had 1 in this game. He's so jumpy on fakes. This is something he actually, I thought, got better at last year in his, albeit limited time, but like whatever it was, 8 games if you count preseason, where he's staying down a little more. He's too jumpy. First possession of the game, he jumps on defense, gets beat, but he recovered and then had a good contest to force a miss at the basket. He had another jumpy play late in the second quarter, but like he also had a lockdown defensive play. In the second quarter, he had 3 boards in just his first stint. Like, he did good stuff. And in my notes, this is similar to something I thought about Ben Mathurin at times last season, is that Isaiah Jackson was invisible in a good way, right? Sometimes when people say this, when they're, saying, being critical of a player, I didn't even realize he was on the floor, right? And Isaiah Jackson very rarely, like, his best plays are so loud because of his athleticism and finishing that, like, it feels like when you notice him, it's because he's doing stuff like that, or he's just jumping all over the gym and fouling like crazy. When he has a quiet game and he's not making mistakes, but he's not, that's good. That's kind of what you want from a rotation big who's never been a starter before. It's just like not messing up as much, cleaning up the boards, make half your shots, be in the right place to contest on the perimeter and at the basket on defense. I thought he was invisible. I typed this in my notes. Invisible parentheses compliment. I thought that was very good from him and better all around game from him. And if he has one more solid, I would say, preseason outing, unless Huff is just like significantly better than him in one of these games, I would say that he will be the Pacers starting center come opening night. The rest of the bigs, I talked about Huff on Sunday because he was very productive statistically, didn't miss a shot, 3 blocks. He was a beast. Around the basket, he also had 3 turnovers and 5 fouls. Like, it was not he had like the loud mistakes I would talk about with Jackson. He also had a lot of very loud successes. He dunked it, right? It was all great. The rest of the center stuff continues to be interesting. So first, let's say this. I said I'm not calling this a thing. I'm just noticing it, that Tony Bradley went in ahead of Wiseman in Minnesota. This time, it happened again, and without foul trouble. No foul trouble for Jackson. I guess foul trouble for Huff, but it seemed like it was the plan for him to only play through the first 3 quarters. And Tony Bradley was again in as the third big. He goes for 2 points and 3 boards in 5.5 minutes and was plus 10. They just dominated with him on the floor in his stint in the third quarter. He's been very solid in his minutes. I don't even know if I believe that they have him ahead of Wiseman, but it has been interesting to me that Bradley has played with rotation players in both of his stints in preseason, and James Wiseman has not. James Wiseman has played with largely the third group. And I haven't even gotten to Wiseman. He played well in the fourth quarter of this game. He played quite well in this game. But the first time it happened, I was like, okay, it's preseason. There was foul trouble. I don't want to make this a thing. I remember the Jordan Nwora game, 2 preseasons ago, 3 preseasons ago, where I was like, wait, what? And then they never went back to him. It happened twice now. I don't want to get ahead of anything here. One guy's guaranteed money. Wiseman played well in this game, but I'm keeping that in the brain that keeps happening. Bradley played well. We know what he's good at. He hasn't shown like an expansion of his skills, but he's very good at the things that he's very good at. James Wiseman in this game played, I think his 12 minutes was the whole fourth quarter of the game. And in general, one thing that helped him is, yes, he played the whole fourth quarter. One thing that generally helped James Wiseman is that the group he played with, like the deep bench guys, the whole fourth quarter was Slauson, McLaughlin, Ray J. Dennis, James Wiseman, and then part Talen Peter, part Jarris Walker. Those guys were just better in this game, right? Ray J. Dennis had 10 points in just that period. McLaughlin does a lot of stuff. Making shots is not one of them. Peter had a great game. Walker played better. That group just looked better, and it looked so bad in Minnesota that I think that hurt Wiseman. But here's what one James Wiseman's stat line was nice, right? 10 points, didn't miss a shot, made both of his free throws, 5 rebounds in the game, 1 turnover, no fouls, right? Much better. What I think stands out to me not again, but kind of following up on, like, Carlisle told us that Wiseman, even post Achilles, one of the things that went well for him in camp was his conditioning. He was one of the last guys to drop out of their conditioning exercise. That's good. In this game, I thought that is actually the thing that popped to me the most about his successes, right? He's been running hard up the floor and like literally beating his man up the floor several times, getting points doing that, right? He sprints hard. He gets into the paint. All of a sudden, there's a small on him. And the pitcher's like, oh, look, James Wiseman's huge. There's a small defender on him. Here you go. Or he gets down the floor pretty fast, and he's got good positioning, even when guarded by the center, to the point that a shot goes up, he can get the offensive rebound and either score or draw a foul that way. I think he got 4 or 6 points counting free throws just from sprinting hard, right? And that on the Pacers is such an important thing. So I thought that was a good thing. Oh, yes. His foul that he drew was scooping up an offensive rebound, being huge, being a beast, and then drawing a foul, right? So the same thing that's kind of plagued him forever is going to continue to be the thing that the Pacers need him to get better at. Defensive positioning and angles and awareness and things of that nature, right? His defense, his offense, and his size and his speed way ahead of his defense. But this was the game that's like the blueprint of why, if he's a third center, like, he can win you games. Is just he's so huge and he's got the conditioning to just like run up the floor and be a mismatch, or run hard and like he's just faster than the other 7'1" guy on the floor, or his matchup 6'9" or 6'10", and he's got like 4 inches on them, right? So it's obvious what his strengths and weaknesses are, but in this game, all the strengths were there in a way that led to a productive statistical game and showed, like, yes, this is why they invested in James Wiseman post Achilles for the second year in a row. And again, I think this type of season that they're about to embark on, it makes more sense to have a Wiseman type than last year when they signed him for the first time. So we'll see where this goes with the center thing. The rotation so far has had Bradley as the third big, but I think the guaranteed money and the productivity of Wiseman in this game probably still suggests Wiseman has the advantage as being the third big. We'll see, though. 2 more preseason games to have more analyses, figure more out. Maybe they do some other contract stuff. And remember, Quinton Jackson's hurt. Johnny Furphy's hurt. TJ McConnell's hurt. We're going to learn a lot about a lot of stuff for the Pacers in these games, just given who is and is not available. I believe that is now every note I have from this game. I guess I have a few more things to say about the deep bench guys, but I'll add one more caveat as we continue to talk about preseason. Pascal Siakam, Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith didn't play. That's known, but like, remember that when you're analyzing what happened. If anybody seemed particularly good or bad, or like they didn't mesh with the lineup, yeah, the best guys didn't play. And then by the second half, the following 8 guys were not playing. Tyrese Haliburton in the second half because of injury. Tyrese Haliburton, Quinton Jackson, Ben Shepherd, Cam Jones, TJ McConnell, all hurt, all not playing. Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, Pascal Siakam also out. So 8 of the 21 guys were just done at that point. And I would probably wager that is their best 8 ball handlers. Maybe you could put Ray J. Dennison over one of those guys. It's like maybe Jarris over one, depending on how you feel. It's very hard to contextualize what is and isn't going well when like the groups on the floor are just like, oh, okay, this will never be a 5-man unit we ever see again. That's what preseason is in a lot of ways. You're figuring out how you're going to play and who can do it in any situation more than like who's good and who's not. But that matters more in this game than in Minnesota, where they were hockey shifting and it was clearly like rotation guys the first half, not as much in the second half. So keep that in mind too. And keep that in mind throughout the preseason, right? Good things and bad things deserve that it's just preseason caveat. And remind yourself who guys are playing with, good or bad, during their successes and failures. Okay, I'll talk a little bit more about some deep bench guys who have gotten basically no conversation to close this one out, and a little about the Spurs, the Pacers' opponent in both of their final preseason games coming up this week. Before we do that, I got to tell you guys about 2 great groups of people. First up, FanDuel. The NFL season is here. The Colts are awesome and lead the conference. FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put down $5 if it hits. Go on like $300 in bonus bets you can use across the app. A lot of people love FanDuel for a lot of different reasons, right? It gives you so many ways to play, like live lines during games. Colts Cardinals line, I'm sure, was crazy down the stretch. Player props, building parlays. It makes watching football more exciting for many when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com right now to download the FanDuel app today, and you can get started. We also have got to talk about the good people at Monarch Money. Most people cannot name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks or properties or investments. We don't have the full picture. You can end up leaving money on the table. That is why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface right on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. They do the heavy lifting for you. You can link your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally, feel in control of your money without touching a spreadsheet. Identify where you're not saving as much as you thought. Find inefficient investments, discover forgotten 401ks so you can maximize your investments, increase your savings rate, and of course, easily review your finances with a partner. It's a great way to not let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA. Back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day or second listen. Oh, man, so many choices. Preseason is fun and interesting. Locked On Bucks, all the latest on Giannis as well. What other teams have I watched and enjoyed? The Saar brothers played against each other in Wizards Raptors. If you're interested in that would be my next one. And a buzzer beater in that game from one of said brothers. Locked On Raptors will be my second listen recommendation. Any other notes player-wise? Ray J. Dennis keeps bombing. 7 threes of his 9 shots. He's taken a lot of threes. He had 3 assists, but 5 turnovers. I continue to just go, about his jumper being a thing that's developing. That could be a positive for him. I bet there's a lot of games this year where either I watch it or I look at a boom box score when the game's over and I go, wait, Ray J. Dennis had like 28 and 9 or 25 and 11 or something. He's just got so many point guardy skills. If he develops any sort of jumper, he'll be an interesting player. He's he is more point guardy than Quinton Jackson, but way less of a scorer or like dynamic player. But I continue to keep being like intrigued by the volume he's able to put up, largely on like self-created shots as well. Also on the Exhibit 10 front, these two guys almost certainly going to be with the boom. I hate to say this, but like the unfortunate way to find out is the Pacers put up the player banners for their guys in the concourse at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The 18 guys that you'd expect are up there, and Jalen Lawson and Gabe McLaughlin do not have one. Cam Payne also did not because he's been on the team for 2 days. So, like, they're probably going to be at the boom. Gabe McLaughlin's a beast on the boards. He had 4 rebounds. Again, he just, like, has such a nose for the ball to me, but he cannot make anything. 1 for 9 in this game. Missed all 4 of his threes. Jalen Lawson, meanwhile, was the opposite. He only took 2 shots. He didn't make either of them, but he had more rebounds, pushed well in transition, like moved the ball kind of capably. I at least see the framework of why these are interesting players to have on your G League team. And like the Mad Ants have not had, they had 2 years ago some pretty good wings. Last year, I think they were a little less solid at the position, especially after they traded away Kyle Mangus. I know no one's here for preseason NBA game analysis, so I can talk about the G League, but I mean, it helps your two-way guys if they're in better contexts to develop even in the G League. So they were good. Obviously, the two-way guy, Taylor Peter, was the story of the game in general with his 18 points. If you want to hear more on that, the podcast prior to this one is for you. I believe now I've touched on everybody from each of the Pacers' 2 preseason games so far. They're now 4-5 down against the Thunder in the best of 11 from the finals through Summer League to the end of this regular season. So they need to win both to win the best of 11 and claim the fictional I just made it up series. And they play on opening night in like 10 days or something. Okay, the Spurs are the Pacers' next opponent, and again, their next opponent for the next 2 games. Both games this week are against San Antonio. They're home Monday night and on the road Friday, if you're not keeping up with the Pacers' schedule. The Spurs have been playing their guys so far in preseason. I've barely caught them actually playing so far. I watched them play the Heat, and Wembanyama was like not as impressive. I've seen the highlight of him just shouldering through somebody on a drive to the basket and scoring. But the only reason I bring this up is I personally am going to put a little more weight on the center rotation in this kind of game. The Spurs are huge, right? Not only did they have Wemby, who's like a test and a marker of just like, oh, can you guard, taller players, versatile players, the best defenders? How do they impact what you're doing? And so Isaiah Jackson and Huff and whoever gets any sort of burn against him, it'll be critical that they're able to make him move and set good screens and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, that's obvious. But they also have Luke Cornett, who's like apparently the most underrated player among fans in the NBA. He's legitimately good and might start for the Spurs. Can space the floor, is also a decent defender despite being kind of slow. And Kelly Olynyk, who's just annoying, thorn in your side, kind of like hard to move kind of guy. So that's a lot of difficult for different reasons kind of matchups. The rest of their team is like good. De'Aaron Fox is out, but they have other guys that are like noteworthy to evaluate against on their team. Some good vets, some good young players, but the highlight of the Spurs, obviously because of Wemby, but not only because of Wemby, is the 5s. And so I think that for a Pacers team that is still trying to, I'd say the most questions are at center, who's going to make the team, who's going to start, are at the 5. This is a good test for that specifically. And I think that, outside of, besides the significant performances or the standouts or whatever, that will be a leading topic for me after both games this week is, how did the centers look, A, in general, and B, against Wemby? Because, like, I saved centers for today. Isaiah was not so standoutish. I talked about a little bit of J. Huff on the weekend show because a lot of other stuff mattered more to me in that Thunder game. But I think in these Spurs games, I know this is very generic, but this is the perfect time for the Pacers to really evaluate their 5 spot. Are they certain Isaiah should be the starter? I like I already said, but I'll reiterate, if he has one more pretty good to good game, I would be like, yes, I think I'd be there. Or does Huff have a phenomenal game that makes you go, oh, hold on? And I would like to see them mix and match that a little more. Obviously, they did not have the chances to put Huff with the starters against the Thunder because many of the starters did not play. They play that team in a real game in 10 days. But I would like to see some of that too. How much mixing and matching do they do? And then does Wiseman get real burn? And then, of course, how do they look in difficult context? They might have to guard the perimeter. They're certainly going to have to guard the perimeter against Wemby and probably Cornette as a shooter. So how does that look for them? How do the Pacers decide to handle it? If they do any goofy cross-matching to those players, hold their own in unique circumstances. There's just a lot to learn about them and what the Pacers center strengths and weaknesses will be this season. Not a ton on the Spurs, but that is my what you should watch for in Pacers Spurs tonight and on Friday, the last week of Pacers preseason. We'll have plenty of fun stuff this week. Tomorrow, we'll, of course, talk about Pacers Spurs. I want to talk about some fun Pacers matchups in the East this week. I'll probably have one show of just like, we'll see. I might do a mailbag. We'll see. I don't know. And then they play the Spurs again on Friday. We'll get 2 guests in here. Thank you all so much for listening today. Hope you had a great weekend. You can find me on social media at Tony R. East. And this podcast is at Locked On Pacers on, I believe, Twitter and Instagram. Thank you all so much again for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.